Good evening, everybody. How are you? Well, you're smiling. Good. You're not on camera. I am. Sorry, I'm now into smiling mode. I've been told I mustn't keep looking at the camera though. So thanks for coming on this evening. We've got a really, hopefully really interesting.
So we see the
No, you can come right on that, but don't worry, the slides are not the centre of things. So the purpose of today has been really looking at key trends in the food hospitality space and how the companies which are really looking to grow latch onto those trends, achieve commercial success, move by finance, look at their strategy, etc. In what is obviously proving a very challenging market. But having done my obviously in-depth research around markets, I just blown away with how big food and hospitality is in the UK. It's just a colossal market. So if you look at food and hospitality as a combined area, about 4 million people are employed in it. It has more new entrant growth companies into the food hospitality space than any other sector. So everyone thinks tech and IT and so on. Well, actually, as a space, this is huge. It has phenomenal change and development. For something which is a big sector, there are really big trends happening. And I must not mention craft brewing and stuff too much, but I kind of like beer. And the last few years, the change in dynamics of that industry caused by craft brewers coming into the market has just changed things. It's just completely dramatic to the level that, to be careful, I live in South East London and a place called Elton. Any of you know? Probably the worst set of pubs in history. And there's only, of the sort of 4 or 5 which were there when I moved in 20 years ago, I think 1 is still there just about. But there are now 3 micro pubs doing stuff completely differently. And so it's amazing how much change has happened just in one particular niche. So today, thanks to Gary and Fiona, we've been running a whole series of one-to-one workshops. So some of you have managed to stay the course and are here this evening as well. Really looking at the details of some companies' plans, strategies, funding, etc., market positioning. There you go, it's very simple. Okay. Connect to Workspace and the username is events@workspace.co.uk. And timetable, well, it's just gone 6:45, so we're going to be running through to about 7:45. All right, this session. Within reason, feel free to sort of get up, go out if you need to, but so it's an hour's discussion. Hopefully there's much conversation around the table because this is really about sharing insights. And then we've got, we're allowed to stay out before security kicks in. We can have another 45 minutes or so outside, then have another drink, etc., and catch up. Because the other big thing about these sessions is really connecting with other people, finding people who are relevant to your business, etc., to share insight with, and so on. Directly connect with people, but also if you want to get hold of people afterwards, got their names, etc., just come through to Inform Funding and we'll help you out. So this session is, we call it a round table, but it's a rectangular table. So what we're going to try and do is look at some of the key themes around this issue of trends and commercialisation and creating profitable growth companies in the space. So really delighted to have, I was going to say a panel, but it's not really, but it's a conversation team, right? Who are sharing their experience. I just made that up, otherwise I'm on that. So just one by one. So Patrick Ryan is an investment manager for Crowdcube. Okay. And I suspect most of you have heard of Crowdcube, possibly. Okay. That wouldn't have been the case 6 years ago, because Crowdcube didn't exist. Was it 2012?
7 years ago.
Yeah, it's just amazing how much that name is out there. If you just want to say exactly what you do at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So I run the inbound business development team. So anyone that comes to us basically from affiliates and partners, plus via our website. We assess businesses, look at their needs, and then point them in the right direction in terms of fundraising. Sometimes that means they require more support before they're ready to work with us. What Crowdcube does, we're an equity investment marketplace, essentially, equity crowdfunding. So we pool money from lots of different funders, so that can be from high net worth individuals right down to the man or woman in the street, and channel that into businesses to help them grow.
I'm fair to say that as a business willing to look at opportunities, you're pretty strong at giving feedback to people.
Yes, yeah. Lots of free advice that we should be charging for, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, look, in terms of food and drink specifically, I'd say it's about 30 to 40% of volume in terms of what comes to us. It also has quite a high funding rate for various reasons. We do a lot in craft brewing, but yeah, look, we're always happy to have a chat with people. We don't always have masses of time to give, but definitely give feedback and then point you in the direction of people who can help get you ready or get you to the stage where you are ready to raise funds, or get you going if it's something you're interested in.
So if we go to your homepage of current funding opportunities, so you're all welcome to invest in these opportunities as you go. You've got Crate Brewery, Serious Pigs, Redwell Brewing.
Yeah.
So you're quite right, there's a real pretty heavy focus actually about food and products. Just wondered what your favourite investment has been. Not necessarily the most successful, but what's been.
Yeah. In food and drink, I mean, we've had a lot of successes. Do you guys know Pip and Nut? So they do like almond butter, peanut butter, that sort of thing. They sort of saw that trend, saw around the corner, I think, quite far out. Maybe 7 years ago or something. She started that business. We raised some money for them, and they've gone on to receive significant backing and really scale very successfully in the UK. Nice brand, I really like the products. I always have some in my favorites. So.
And next we have Mark Francis. Mark, now you've got a background. I really wanted someone here who has had loads of experience in very big companies, right? And so you've worked in or with people like KP, Audi, Litbred, etc. So, John, how do these big companies think about small companies?
Me. So I'm Mark Francis. I work with a company called Uspire. I founded it. We're an SME, so like many people in this room. But we do work with our clients, our big named companies that you'll have heard of, like HSBC, as you said, Danone, Baby Foods, people like that. So the insight about that is, how do you get a big company to want to work with you on your ideas and your products? And during this evening, I'd like to share that, Chris, if I may, because we managed to do it, so we have a way to do that. Because if you've got a brilliant idea, how do we bring it to market is one of the things that we do. We specialise in people development, so that's our focus, energising people to transform business. So the question we like to help you answer is, how do you take the people with you in your business, your own people and the consumer or target audience? How do you take people with you is one of the questions we like to work with you to answer. So that's who we are and what we do.
Cool. And then Anita Murray, who's Chief Executive of William Murray PR.
Hi everyone. Well, I set up my first company when I was 26, and I'm still learning and making mistakes. But it's a wonderful experience actually running your own business and tapping into your entrepreneurial spirit. I'm CEO of William Murray, my colleagues in the room. And basically our business is to promote businesses in the food service space. So we have worked within food service, food, drink, hospitality for 30 years. Through that time we've worked with companies like Unilever, with Quorn, and down to some of the smaller organisations and brands that are trying to get into that space. It's a very complicated market, with lots of wholesalers that you have to navigate. So if anybody is interested in the food service space, then very happy to have a chat to you and give you some benefit of our experience in that. It's a really exciting place to be because it's really dynamic.
And you've been involved in, dare I say, endless campaigns over the years. Right?
Yeah.
Just again, some of which people around the table would no doubt heard of. So, what's been your favourite campaign in the food space?
Well, I've got two, so it's really hard. But I think one of the ones that I really enjoyed the most was we actually wrote the first ever street food report into the impact of street food as a trend on the food, drink and hospitality, and that was back in 2014 with Richard Johnson, who really pioneered street food and runs the British Street Food Association. And we absolutely loved that because it was a real emerging trend, and he persuaded the client, who's a spice company, to grab hold of it and to really own it and carry out some insight. From then on, we've been involved in the European Street Food Awards, and we've seen street food just growing from, places like Borough, places like Curb, right across the UK to Digbeth in Birmingham, right across Europe. And then we're starting to see it now in retail. So at the moment, we've obviously got Indian street food is a real trend. So we've got the growth of Mowgli, which I'm married to a Scouser, so I go to Liverpool a lot. And they're in Liverpool, they're in Leeds, they're in Manchester. And then just recently, Iceland launched its first ever range of frozen street food. So you know what? So it's been involved in that kind of dynamism that makes it such a fantastic industry to be in. So yeah, and it's always about what's next. So that's what I enjoy the most.
Great stuff. We'll hear plenty more. So yes, now I'd like to introduce Laura Willoughby, who best at introducing herself really, I think. And yes. Yeah. Right. Do you want to chat about where you've come from and this mindful?
Yeah. So I guess mindful drinking. Who's heard of mindful drinking? Yeah. Well done, my co-founder there. Very pleased. Usually from Finland, which shares very much the British hard drinking culture. But I set up Club Soda. We've actually been going since January 2015. And I set up Club Soda because I gave up drinking 7 years ago and realised there wasn't anything that I think, there were lots of services for people who need face-to-face services because they've got a dependency problem. There wasn't very much out there for everyone that I call a very special group, which is called everyone who's a bit of a dickhead with booze. It's a medical term. It's definitely the pattern I fell into and decided that I wanted to change my drinking. And so I wanted to set up something that felt a bit more like Weight Watchers or Slimming World, the idea of a club where you're doing a self-guided journey but you want some support from other people. And so it still surprises me to this day that I'm spending so much time in pubs now, speaking at pub trade events, and we have a beer researcher on the team. And we held a festival this January in a brewery. So all in all, I think we're doing really well at trying to change something about the way the British drink. But we've actually come at a very fortuitous time because we did some research back in 2015 about how to change the behaviour of pubs and bars towards their non-drinking customers. And that bit of research came just at the right time when suddenly Heineken Zero came out and a load of other alcohol-free drinks started to hit the market. And so our timing was pretty good. We're at the start of a trend. And so actually our goal isn't just focused around helping people change their drinking habits, whether that's to cut down or stop for a bit or quit, although we still do that. But our goal is to create a world where nobody has to feel out of place if they're not drinking. Because the thing that infuriated me the most is to go to a pub or bar, say that like an alcohol-free drink, and pat the top of that Coke gun, and go, well, we've got Coke and lemonade, and then they shove it at you like you're 12 and you're about to go and wait in the car park for your dad. And I feel that somehow something had to change about that. And so with the help of all the brands emerging in this space, we've done some really interesting stuff. But to give you some context, This is a fast-growing category. Alcohol sales have stagnated over the last few years. We still drink an awful lot, don't worry, it's not going anywhere. But cross-generationally, we're drinking less. Younger people are drinking less to begin with. They're more likely to drink less drinks in the evening or mix and match their drinks between alcoholic and alcohol-free. Those in the ladette generation, around my age, 44, have realised that you can eat as much care as you like, but you undo all that hard work if you drink a bottle of wine in the evening. And so again, that age group also reducing how much they drink. So £43 million was spent on alcohol-free beer last year, a massive increase of 24%. 1 in 5 British adults are looking to change their drinking in some way, so this isn't going away particularly. And I'm not sure if anybody's seen Tesco's, but Tesco's were the first to put in a dedicated alcohol-free aisle, which started off this big and is now this big, and is really, and now Marks and Spencer's have launched a big range in their store, and Sainsbury's has, and Waitrose is surprisingly slow, but I'm sure they'll get there in the end. So you can see that, and surprisingly, beer's a bit of a no-brainer, right? So we're all used to knowing that beer used to and does come at low ABVs. The good news is it doesn't taste like caliber anymore. Technology's changed, and actually there's some amazing beers that are winning prizes against full-strength beers in the World Beer Awards. One of them's Big Drop that you've got outside today. But bizarrely, we've also got alcohol-free spirits coming into this space. So many of you would have heard of Seedlip, but we've got Cedars here today, which is available in all the supermarkets. And again, it's a tiny portion of the market at the moment, but it's growing fast. And there are many reasons for this trend, and one is the fact that when we go out on an evening, we want an experience now. That idea of vertical drinking, where you just stand in a bar with a pint, isn't a night out anymore. Everyone wants a good food serve. They want a drink to go with that food serve. They want drinks that go with the concept of the venue, and they want drinks that make them feel like it's not something they'd get a service station meal deal. They want something that says, I'm out for the evening, and this is a time and a switching day. And so that's where alcohol-free drinks are coming into their own, because it is about feeling special. It is a premium option on an evening out, and more importantly, they're designed for an adult palate, so they go with food. You know, Coke will kill. I've still been to Michelin-star restaurants where they offer you Coke as the alcohol-free option. I mean, there's a surefire way to kill a really, really lovely meal is with a Coke or a very orange juice-based cocktail, alcohol-free cocktail. So again, you know, there is a time and a place, and there's some really interesting stuff happening here, and this is a growing trend. So we've been doing the Mindful Drinking Festival now. We've done 5 festivals. We did a Mindful Drinking Festival in Glasgow, and so I think if you can take alcohol-free drinks to Glasgow and succeed, you can do anything. But the curiosity is massive, and people are really interested in trying drinks, and there's still lots of preconceptions to get over. But at the minute, there's a lot of really great innovators in this space really taking the opportunity. Us as a movement, we're a bit of a strange business. So we started off trying to help people change their drinking, and we still do. We've got 30,000 members, but we've now got 300 drinks brands and over 3,500 pubs in our membership, and they're all on our guide. So here we've got, our guide now has a list of 750 alcohol-free drinks aimed at the adult market. We're signing up venues who get a score out of 5 depending on what they serve. People can find out which supermarkets the drinks are in that they want to find. And we're asking the public to help us crowdsource this, because I believe in the power of the consumer to change the way things happen. I want them to move this market faster and quicker than it's currently going, and help break down those barriers and perceptions, so that when you go for an evening out, everybody feels welcome. Everyone feels equally treated, whether you're driving, whether you're pregnant, whether you're going to the gym tomorrow, or whether you happen to be taking me out for a drink. So that's what we hope to do, and we think that there's a really exciting trend here to take advantage of.
Amazing. So yeah, I mean, just listening through that, and in terms of creating products which answer that growing demand, what's the mix? Is it small businesses getting out there doing this? Are they driving the change, or?
So there's lots of small innovators, and a lot of them have got their own story. They gave up drinking because they had kids, or they wanted to cut down, found there wasn't anything interesting. So Big Drop is a classic example of that. Rob's a lawyer. He wanted to cut down because he seems to have tons of children. I don't know whether he was. He decided that he needed to cut down what he was drinking, and didn't find a stout that he wanted. So he must have been well chuffed when his stout won silver in the World Beer Awards against a full-strength stout in a blind tasting. So, you know, that shows you that technology's moved on in terms of the production. So he's an individual innovator, and beer, like I said, takes this a lot easier. But then you've got people like Distill Ventures, which is an arm of Diageo, who are now innovating in this space and are investing in small businesses, either with initial concepts or that are a little bit further on the line. But there's definitely being driven by individuals who decided there was a gap when they went to look for something and they wanted to fill that.
Mark, you know, if you're looking from a big company perspective here, are they tracking this type of activity? I mean, are they?
I would say
How
slowly.
quickly do they invest into it?
Yeah, I would say slowly. What happens with the big ones is that they pretend that the way they've always done it is the way it's going to work because we're big, and then a trend hits them, and then they actually move pretty fast, but reactively. So I mentioned earlier around how can you influence the big ones to buy your company or product, and my experience is find an insight about their business, and then go and show value, give them value, and then they go, can you come and talk to us about other things? So slow is the answer, Chris, to that, and I'm sure you find that very well.
Yeah, and what I find interesting, this is a new sector for me, so I'm fascinated by the fact that I mean, lots of people have been making stuff in their kitchen. You say, can we send you some samples? And we get these scrappy labelled things come through, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing sex stuff, but you know, okay, we'll try them. At one end, and then we get invited in by the marketing teams in the big companies because all of their innovation starts with what the package will look like, and I find that fascinating. I always thought it was about the liquid, but and they're going, right, we need a product in this space for 18 to 25-year-olds, and then we need one in this space for this age group and to go with this, and they start from that way round, and that, I guess, is very difficult for small brands to get into a big company because you have to impress the marketeers as opposed to let them come and find you at an event where you've already got some liquid in a bottle.
Do they come to you? Do they want you to go to, I don't know, board meetings, whatever?
Yeah, we've been invited in to give insights quite a lot now, which is been an interesting experience in itself. I'm probably not charging enough for that now, but you know, I've learned a lot from doing that. But they come to our festivals as well to find all the new people. You know, because our aim is to put as much in front of the consumer as possible so they can explore this, we don't have a ticket price for our festivals. We try and make space for even the smallest people. Like, there's a beer called Cypher that's only done a couple of rounds of making his beer so far, but we found ways to get him into the festival. And so we find a lot of companies coming around to try the product.
And just thinking there as well, you mentioned Seeders?
Yes.
And there's Seedlet?
Yes.
All alcohol free. So kind of question for Anita. I mean, it almost sounds like you've got some pretty competitive sort of options there already. What's the key for getting your brand and PR right at that sort of stage?
I mean, at early stage.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think there's a few boring bits you've got to do, and then there's the kind of the marketing and positioning bit. When I say boring bits, you've got to make sure, a bit like you say, Mark, you've got to make sure that your product is meeting a need, an identifiable need. You've got to make sure your product has the right accreditations, because a lot of firms, especially in food service, will not touch you unless you've got various accreditations. And so basically you've got a number of boxes to tick. You've got to have relationships with wholesalers. Again, in food service, if you're not in a wholesaler, you won't sell the product. But then the exciting bit is you can do things differently to the bigger brands. So, for example, we've just launched, I say we, I don't do any work, it's all Fiona and Charlie and Chelsea. So we just launched a hemp milk into the alternative milk market. They haven't got big budgets, they couldn't afford to stand at the London Coffee Festival, so we thought we'd be a bit cheeky, and we basically created a hemp coffee cart, and we parked it literally right outside the London Coffee Festival. And basically we had to have a little plan for when we got moved on by the council, but it didn't happen. And we got so much buzz, so much brand awareness of this new product for very little spend. So actually you've got to have some guts. and you've got to do a little bit of, risk taking to get your product noticed.
So, Patrick, when you're looking at these trends and companies coming to you with new offers and new spaces, etc., and perhaps think more widely than food product, because there's a lot of associated emerging businesses in the space, particularly around tech, etc., and information management in the hospitality industry, staffing capabilities, etc.
Yeah.
How important is it that you get your due diligence right? What do you look for in those companies in terms of track record?
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing if you're selling as an investment, people know that's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I think part of it is definitely what Anita mentioned. More than having track record or loads of sales, it's do you have product market fit? I've been on both sides of the table. I started a vodka company about 4 years ago. Terrible timing for a product like that in the market, and sold a couple of thousand bottles, but it didn't go that well. And I think having something unique and being able to see a trend that's coming in a couple of years' time or something like that is a big part of it. Is that trend going to be sustainable? I think in food and drink, we can say quite safely that small is probably a long-term trend in terms of people like the maverick brands who stand out and do things a little bit differently. People like heritage, they like authenticity, they like transparency. Generally what we look for first and foremost is what they call in investment product market fit. So that's you can have a great team and a really nicely made product, but if the market doesn't want it, the market wins. You can have a terrible team, a really terribly branded product, but if the market does want it, the market wins, right? So always look at what the market wants and think about what people want and not about what you want. There can be a tendency, I think, as a founder to sort of think, if I build it, they will come. I know because I've done it. But I think it's really important to just listen to people and not think you've got all the answers. And if you can try and be mindful of what's around you, what's happening, then you'll start to see trends emerging. It's about getting on top of that. So yeah, that's I think the number one thing we look for.
Yeah, and then sort of on that theme, obviously a lot of early stage businesses won't get there. They'll fail at some stage.
Yeah.
So maybe just broaden this out a little bit about what are the key things to get right to have sort of longevity in particular.
Yeah.
So that maybe actually kicking off, the type of investment people take on and so on, what sort of support.
Yeah. So CrowdCube is equity investment. At the early stages, it's difficult to get access to debt from banks and that sort of thing. You can look at alternative debt lenders for small amounts of money. I think rewards-based crowdfunding platforms are a great way to kick a food or drink business off. So if you go to Kickstarter or Indiegogo, or in the UK, we own a stake in a business called Crowdfunder. So if you're looking to raise sort of £10,000, £15,000, you can basically pre-sell your product. You can go out to all your friends and family, your network. I think that's a great way to go about things. Looking longer term, what investors are looking for. I think there's sort of 3 or 4 things that make your business defensible. So one is brand, especially in consumer. One is scale. So they're 2 things you don't have when you're a small business. I think the third one is embedding. So that's like sort of having being very well in with certain clients. It's more of a B2B thing, to the point where you're too embedded in their business to be removed. There's too much opportunity cost involved in switching. And the fourth one is networks and network effects, which is really something we've seen with the internet. If you look at tech, 70% of value in the last 25 years is thanks to network effects. So if you look at platform business like Facebook, the more people use it, the more valuable it becomes. I think the real value of what we do at CrowdCube is actually allow a physical business to engineer a network effect into their business at an early stage, because rather than it just being you've got 500 people around you who've got skin in the game, they own a small stake in your business, and they're going to go out there and talk to their friends about it. They're likely to be people who enjoy your product, and therefore be connected to other people who potentially enjoy your product. So vegans hang out with vegans, non-drinkers hang out with other non-drinkers. I think the business that's nailed this is Brewdog, more than anyone else in food and drink. They've got 50,000 investors. Their biggest day for sales every year is their AGM. If you also look at Monzo or Revolut, I mean, if you look at consumer in the UK, 3 of the biggest 10 consumer businesses in the last 10 years are Monzo, Revolut and Brewdog. They've all raised significant funds from equity crowdfunding. I don't think that's about capital. I think it's about getting consumers behind your brand, which is something someone else, did you say that? I need to. But, you know, sort of, people want to be a part of things. And it's a great way to get them involved. So, yeah.
So it might be my age, but in terms of networking, I think that's a really good point. But I would also say that do not underestimate the value of getting a highly networked individual or group of individuals behind your product. So a good example is a platform called Sift, which basically, we were talking about the difficulty of recruiting in the hospitality sector, which is going to get worse with the Brexit factor. They've basically got a platform that puts potential employees in touch with students, etc., who just want a shift. And their NED is an ex-board director of Sodexo, which is one of the biggest food service organisations in the world. So if you spot somebody, he can walk into anywhere and get them into anywhere, which is why they're doing much better than their competitors. So again, don't underestimate the face-to-face power of the individual in the social media.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think it's ever too early to get some non-execs involved in your business or advisors. And in terms of how you remunerate them, there's easy ways to look at it. You know, you can do advisory shares that vest over a period if they deliver on things that you want them to. But you know, someone who has experience in network, you know, Mark, as you'll know very well, can turn 6 months of sales work into 6 minutes.
Just on that point, Chris, actually, one of the businesses that is a partner of ours, I just know them, they run a business that provides non-exec directors to businesses where the business that takes them does not pay because it's developing the person as a non-exec director. So mutual benefit, no cost. So if anyone in the room has interest in that, please come see me and I'll give you the name of the person who runs that.
And a sort of a broad question in terms of, I guess there are different routes to being able to expand your small business quickly, one of which is going to talk to, you know, an ABF or a Unilever, etc. What sort of shape do you need to be in as a business before risking talking to them?
That's fascinating. What sort of shape? This is the point about scalability that Patrick made about, can you scale? If a big one comes in and says, love what you do, can we have 30,000? Well, I've got 12. That's the challenge I think you're talking about, Chris. And I think that just has to be in the strategic plan, about thinking about at what point do I need a big partner, who I can then provide all the things that they would want. Classically in the food business, and a lot of my clients are in the food business as suppliers, the big challenge is if you win an Aldi contract or a Tesco contract, the sudden scalability that is required is enormous and challenging. And that was Chica, who's one of the products here, Chica found that, is that how do I produce the quality in the quantity required from the big player?
Could we ask, we've got Freddie here from Chica's actually, we could ask you that.
Yes, I mean, I kind of felt that resonates quite well with some of the stories you hear. For example, I know Brewdog, they were very near collapse when they got a huge contract from Tesco. They suddenly had to get all this investment and machinery going. And I think a lot of times you kind of just have to really think on your feet and use resources available to you in order to kind of make that supply, because when it comes along, the last thing you're going to do is say no. So I think it's very important to kind of use your resources and your network to kind of build that supply and make sure that expectations are met kind of early on, because the last thing as well that you'd like to do is kind of disappoint somebody further down. I know that, you know, when Chica was building in the early days, we've gone through quite different iterations, and our products now really stand out for what we are, and they're super colourful, amazing flavours, and the flavours have always been there. But I think what's helped Chica and Chica's to kind of grow to where we are now has definitely been that kind of learning process, and learning with the brand.
A good anecdote on that one. The founders were innocent, famously got a big order, weren't able to fulfill it, really needed the money, and were in a dire situation cash flow wise as well. And it's that story of sort of, you know, look for every possible avenue and, you know, have no shame. Sent an email to everyone in his inbox saying, can anyone help me find an investor? And that's how they found their lead investor for that round of funding. And I think, you know, often it is raising equity, you know, especially for food businesses at that early stage, which is obviously difficult because you don't want to give away too much of your business either. But they're always cash intensive at that point. So yeah, you've got to look at all avenues, I guess.
So just this point about kind of the pace of growth and scale up, etc. Sounds like a really key issue. So as well, you know, maybe Laura, with the companies you look at in your area and trend, people like Seedlip, they seem to have disappeared, bang, you know. To be successful, do you have to be very quick?
I don't know. What they had was a lot of money to play with. So actually they managed to go very big very quickly because they had significant cash. Pernod are behind Cedars, and their relationship is very different. There isn't that sort of cash in that relationship. It's not the same sort of dynamic. So I guess if you've got a lot of money, you can pull in a lot of really good expertise who know the market really well and really push a product forward. And I guess that's what I've seen with Seedlip. But what they've done is they've opened the door for other brands to come in behind them. And we had 9 alcohol-free spirits launch at the festival last year. And there's some really interesting products coming through. And without Seedlip really making the way and introducing, you know, beers and easy concept, spirits, slightly an alcohol-free spirit, slightly harder concept, they managed to create that environment. And so it isn't always the case that just because somebody else is doing it, you can't do it or shouldn't do it. It might be that they're laying the foundations, and I think that will begin to happen in wine. The dark spirits are coming through this year. I'm really hoping for a revolution in shandies personally as well. So, you know, and that's great because that's collaborations with brewers and stuff. So, and food juice and other drink makers. So there's some really exciting stuff to happen here when people get together and begin to think what the possibilities are.
And Lisa, you know, you mentioned that Good Hemp.
Yeah.
Is it really expensive actually to get really out there? I mean, is there some special, you mentioned sort of almost positioning in front of the...
I thought you'd say is it expensive to milk a hemp. I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
I think there's lots of different ways. So for example, there's awards, there's that you can go for across the country. So there's regional awards, there's obviously national taste awards. For food service, there's the Caterer Product Awards. So I think you can pick off areas that won't cost you a shed load of money. But I think you made a really good point earlier on when we were having a chat, being sorted out for our cameras, which is weird, about this, about having a really good story to tell. And I think that's at the basis of everything. I mean, the cheapest story is wonderful. It's how you process your products. That's a big thing that comes out. And I think having a really good and again authentic story, because everybody right now at this point especially wants authenticity, and that's a very attractive proposition. So the storytelling is absolutely crucial. So.
I think always has been as well, right? Like, you know, fundamentally in you know, people buy off people, and they you know, narrative is so important to building a strong brand.
Okay, well, in a few minutes we'll sort of open up for questions around the chamber as well. So many of you who registered for the event, you were asked, if you've got any questions you'd like to raise. I almost feel like having a show of hands here, because like half the questions were about Brexit issues. So I might just do like if people don't mind, wave your hand if you do. We'll have just 2 or 3 minutes about what might happen through Brexit in terms of opportunities, in particular, around the hospitality markets, food service, food industry. Okay. So who'd like to kick off? Mark?
I think we as a nation are incredibly entrepreneurial. Chica's just a lovely example we've been speaking about. And genuinely, I think we find a way, whatever happens. We're in this weird situation where our government haven't a clue. And we all know that, not a clue. And so one of the things we've been doing as a business is just, I'm going to call it hedging our bets, Chris. We as I said, we're an SME, but we're launching on Monday an office in Dublin, so that we've got a foot in Europe if we're not going to be part of Europe going forward. And I think some canniness around that is pretty smart. But I'm confident in the spirit of the people of this great nation that we have to say, we'll find a way. And in terms of food, we'll find local produce to replace some we might not be able to get from somewhere else. So I take a very positive angle on it. I think that's
we're focused on
maybe
we're focused on opportunities here.
I'll maybe be the skeptic. Looking at it from a finance perspective, I mean, we're seeing a dip in investment in the markets generally as a result of Brexit. If you look at trading volume, and that's in public markets and private investment. So it would be naive to say it wasn't affecting things. I also think there's a broader trend there. There's a lot of people saying maybe there's a recession coming in the next, sort of 2 to 3 years. So it's a good time to raise some money to shore up your balance sheet. So you can speak to me afterwards.
Let's try to spot the opportunity.
But yeah, I agree with Mark, to be honest. We've just got to get on with it at this stage anyway, right? And that's the same for us as a business. It's the same for everyone in business. And I think, we've got to press on and find the new opportunities that emerge as a result of this. Hopefully the weak pound means, from an export perspective, everyone in this room has got a potential upside.
What about it driving technologies and so on, and different ways of working, if you change labour? We're trying to find some more opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it could do a lot of things, right? It could mean maybe if this whole country becomes less finance focused, if a lot of financial services leave, those firms leave, maybe we have to start. I'm from Scunthorpe originally. The steelworks is not doing a whole lot for Scunthorpe right now. So, I think it would be good to see, more growth in manufacturing and stuff that's sustainable and creates jobs nationwide rather than just in London.
I think linked to that, I was in preparation for this because I didn't know I was going to get asked. So I had a look at all of the different trends across the different decades, starting from the 1950s. And obviously, the 1950s, post-war, that was when it was you were cooking with leftovers, and you started to get pubs that were offering food, and it was very British, very traditional. And then we moved on to the 80s. We saw Market Pierre White and the Belle Cuisine, all of that. I think the thing that I think may come from this is much more support for locally grown produce, for British quality homegrown fare, and I think that that pubs are a classic example. Pub grub, gastropubs are really coming back. So it's going full circle in terms of from where we were. So I think, because I'm from Carlisle, and I'm miners and farmers and crofters and all of that, and I would just love to see us supporting our own growers again, and that might be again a wonderful kind of full circle result of it. So.
I feel like I'm clutching at straws here, guys. A bit of that. Well, I haven't got much to add. I've got a politics background, so I'm trying really hard not to say too much. But times of crisis alcohol comes into play and everything. So, you know, there may be opportunities where we try not to drink through this crisis, or some clearing up to do afterwards. How about that?
Yeah, look, swiftly moving on. So that went well. Right, final question for the panel is so we talked about a lot about current activities and some past trends as well. Lisa, what are the big trends on the horizon that we see potentially coming through?
Because obviously, this is probably your area of expertise as well. I mean, what we're seeing a lot of, the reason I think, for example, mindful drinking is probably a long-term trend is we're seeing this broader trend for health and wellness, you know, fitness. That's not going away anytime soon. Particularly younger people, sort of under 25, they're radically changing the way that they behave and relate to health. I think there's a lot of talk in investment about machine learning and you know all that sort of very tech-driven side of things, but we do a lot in consumer goods, and I think innovation in consumer goods will continue to be a big driver. I think big consumer goods brands are terrible at innovation. They invest about 2% of profits in R&D. Versus if you look at an Amazon or a Microsoft, they're investing sort of 15% of profits in R&D, so they're really pushing that innovation. I used to work for Pernod Ricard, and it took us 2 years to develop like a flavoured whiskey after Jack Daniel's brought out Jack Daniel's Honey, which is like an incremental change in a product anyway. It's not radical innovation. So I think there's masses of opportunity, and it's just about. I also think consumer behaviours are changing very rapidly. I think barriers to entry for entrepreneurs have never been lower. Access to capital, access to buyers. Direct to consumer means marketing costs have switched from being very high to variable, and you're able to start quite low. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for everyone in this room.
I think from obviously definitely health and well-being, but a big one is still meat-free.
Yes.
And I think we work with Quorn, so they just announced that yesterday. They were interviewed by the BBC, and they just announced their gastro burger into retail. We've seen big players like Kerry Foods. This is quite ironic, really. Kerry Foods known for meat processing, and they've just purchased a meat-free brand. ABP Foods, which is the biggest beef processor that you've probably never heard of, but they have just again invested in a meat-free production facility. So meat-free isn't going to go anywhere. And one of our clients, Powlig, which is one of the biggest coffee companies in the world, they just bought a pulled oats alternative protein brand, which is launching into retail.
What about crickets and insects? I've seen a lot of crickets.
I think that's but I think
Do you get investment opportunities around this stuff?
So I saw a dog food brand doing dog food made from crickets, which I actually think is like, for the ethical, vegan dog. I mean, I've met some people who had a vegan dog, and I was like, that's animal cruelty. So but
maybe better off with a cricket bat.
I do think the final thing on that, the sweet spot, if I had any money to invest, the sweet spot would be in food tech, and finding tech that guarantees the security and the quality of food when it's from created in the kitchen to when it's delivered and it's consumed from a food delivery point of view. If you can guarantee the quality of that, do something, then I'll be best friends.
There's a few blockchain
Yeah, I was
companies
going to say,
trying to do that sort of
Providence
thing,
is
aren't they?
doing
Well, they're
that.
a company, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're an amazing company.
So that's food tech for me as well is a massive trend, because restaurant kitchens are getting smaller because they can't afford the rates. So they're having to so equipment is having to get smaller. You're having to use food tech in order to make sure that you're delivering customer service. So we sat with Young Pingo, who do real-time kind of feedback. I mean, in my time, we used to run Mystery Diner. I mean, you know, it's probably a very big mystery Diana. But yeah, so food tech as well, I think, is a real growth area. I can see Diana over there. Hello, you're being very quiet. Diana specialises also in food service, and if anyone ever needs any help in getting into food service, Diana is a person to talk to. So I'll just,
Thank you. One area that I think is a growth area in this space is also health and wellness of staff in the hospitality industry, which is the thing that we've noticed since being part of this space, which is not only is keeping and retaining your staff really important, but the staff are more interested in their health and wellness. Now, maybe because actually they're a much younger workforce in hospitality. And so not only are there things like Healthy Hospo and even hospitality running groups set up for needs and things like that, but we're now looking at how we develop our tools to help people change their drinking habits who work specifically in hospitality, so people can keep working in the industry they love without, well, putting on too much weight or being unhealthy with food or drinking too much alcohol, which of course in hospitality is one of the bigger issues. And the industry is embracing that as well. And so I think there are opportunities in all of that sort of tech that helps health and wellness as well. And so we've just got some money from the Wellcome Trust to do the research element of that. And, you know, that's something we never expected either.
Do you think there'll be sort of continued trends around, you know, eating out and home delivery? I mean, there's obviously a huge change in the last 5 years.
All the retailers going to die. I was going to say also direct to consumer is a big one, right? They're not going to die, but it's going to change radically. Direct to consumer is a big one. Quite challenging if you're a food brand because, you know, quite a low cost product, large, heavy sometimes. But if you're looking at something like supplements or that sort of thing, it's a great one. I think there's going to be loads of space freeing up. I was talking to a guy who runs a bunch of restaurants, and he was saying like, it's been a great period for them because, you know, they're getting offers from landlords for a year and a half, rent-free, will help them fit out, that sort of thing. So if you've got a great dining concept, and I think consumers are looking for experiences more than products, especially millennials. I might be, you know, one of the few on this panel.
Careful. Deceptively young.
But we're well balanced.
So yeah, I think I would say dining is going to continue being a big trend for that reason.
I mean, it is predicted to grow, to maintain its growth within around about 2%. And one of the things we're finding is that customers are now coming to us to help move into the food service space. So I gave you an example of ABP. They're very focused on kind of retail elements, and I know that they just had a presentation to their board on how they tackle the food service market. So food service is being seen because it's the dining out market is kind of higher margin as well. So then that's why Paul went into it. And if you think about it, the other great thing about the dining out market, we get, I guess, relating to the non-alcoholic drinks. If you see something behind a pub counter, then actually you want to go and buy it in the supermarket, and that's a very kind of strong pulse as well.
Yeah, one thing I'd say, we backed a lot of breweries, obviously. A lot of them are now opening their own tap room, you know, pubs. You know, for them it's vertical integration, right? So you own the whole supply chain from production to end consumer. That's how you make the most margin. So, you know, if you've got a product where you can do that. I also think in consumer terms, Anita, you might know more about that, but there's a tendency in dining to focus on a very narrow concept. So for a brand, that can be quite a good thing because you can just do something really specific centered around your product, and it's a great way to reach the end consumer and market to them, but get them to pay for it as well.
Which brings up a question about the wholesalers, because you were talking about getting your product to wholesalers. Drinks, you know, wholesalers don't want to know you unless you've already got 75 pallets worth of orders to bring to them. That's ripe for change, and I wish somebody would shake that up.
Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Well, why does it? Why should there be an area that can be untouched like wholesale?
I completely agree, but it's a cartel. I mean,
we're on tape here.
we work for a wholesaler, so you know, one of the biggest wholesalers. But it's a very entrenched way of doing things.
Who's going to sort out the hackathon so we can try and...
Chris, I want to put a little bit in here for multi-channel and multimedia. And what I mean by that, and you alluded to this, Anita, if I go into a pub and I drink a great new product, and I think, I'd like to source that again for myself, can I get my phone out and scan a barcode and it tells me where else I can get it, be it a wholesaler or a
I'm
supermarket?
just going to put that on our plan.
So
Maybe that's
Right.
not drinking as well.
Yeah.
maybe not, maybe not. Do you know what I mean? So this is multi-channel, right? Get your product in as many different channels as you can, because millennials do exactly that. And if they can't do it, they go, oh, well, this isn't cool. I'll go and find somewhere that is cool. The point about multimedia, and I'm relatively mature in my years, I've discovered video as a key part of how we help people learn. So if you come on a learning program with us, you've seen the learning in advance on a video. To those who have businesses in this room, have a look at your website. How many videos are on it? And if it doesn't have any, you're missing a point. Because a large number of consumers nowadays learn by watching a short film on some sort of Google source endpoint. So have a look at your website and think multimedia.
And it's scalable as well, right? Like, you know, most people start a business because you want equity in something rather than selling your time for money. You want to be making money while you sleep. If you can produce really great content, it's always there, it's always searchable, and people can be online buying your stuff while you're sunning it up and you know, on the beach in France, hopefully.
Good advice, good advice. Look, we've got a few minutes to take any questions. Anybody would like to put to the team here?
I think you guys missed a big trend, which is sustainability in food. Do you guys have any experience or see trends in that, you know, specifically in sustainability in food?
Yep, God, yes, that wasn't planted, was it, Chelsea?
No, it was not.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Sustainability across the whole piece. But, I mean, I think we've just seen Morrison's banning plastic bags just recently. Obviously, Lidl have just said that they're not going to have any black plastic. So it is a massive trend, and it's a massive driver for to consumers. We were just talking earlier, my daughter's 21, and she went on a climate change march, as did most of her friends. So there is a real appetite, especially from the youngsters, for ethical consumerism. And then that also translates across, again, using tech into the restaurant area. I mean, one of the I think a really good organisation is called Winnow, and they've created this tech that helps chefs to manage their food waste. And it's a brilliant piece of kit. They're in IKEA, etc. And I think they got they were kind of funded by kind of people like a good self. But yeah, it's a huge area. And I think I mean, look at plastics. You know, everybody's talking about plastics, packaging. So it's a real key driver, right?
I think it's probably even so big that you miss it because it's like almost a given nowadays. Like if you're not doing it, especially for young consumers, like you're going to get questioned on it. And consumers have a lot of power on the internet as well, and they can attack brands that they think aren't, you know, aligned with the values that they deem to be right. We're raising money for a business at the moment that basically allows millennials, or people, but it's definitely targeting millennials. They're all like 25, the people who started the company, but allows you to invest in businesses, but then advocate change in terms of their CSR. And the big themes are sustainability and environment. So, for example, you invest in Diageo, let's say, but then that pool of people who invested by this platform can advocate and go and speak to them about, you know, CSR, you know, it's sort of inclusion and women in business and equal rights and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's everywhere, and it has to be a part of your strategy, and it can't just be lip service that you pay to it. likewise, it has to sort of align with your brand, and you can't be like, you know, going around and shouting about it if it's not necessarily core to what you do. So.
Okay. Any other questions for you to wrap up?
Could I just ask a question, please? Hello, everyone. About social media, which channels, is there a particularly good channel, or is it good to have a spread of social media across a number of channels? What's the feeling on social media?
I guess it depends who you're targeting. So, for example, because B2B is more my, as you know, my thing, to get to chefs, for example, chefs use Twitter to kind of converse, to ask questions regarding recipe development, innovation, competitions, etc. But then they'll use Facebook for more kind of pally banter. And then there's the growth obviously in Instagram, because that's where they get their inspiration from in terms of seeing different dishes, etc. But then equally, if you're communicating to school cooks or to chefs in pubs or in care homes or in restaurants, the balance of the social media that you use will change according to who you're trying to target. Because school cooks, as you know, have very little access to tech. So for them, communicating to a school cook, it's better to have face-to-face communication or written communication. So it's very dependent on the audience you're looking to target.
Interesting follow-up on that, I ask, because everyone talks about social media, and exactly that point is a lot of people don't use it. How much do you see of old-fashioned marketing and advertising and PR, and how effective do you see that? I know it varies from product to product.
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends again very much on the audience you're looking to target. So, you know, if you're looking to target with, say, good hemp, alternative milk, actually baristas, you know, that's social most of the way, or it's experiential, because they're cool. So, you know, they're all online. It's a massive community. You've got to be seen as being authentic. You can't be seen as being corporate. But when it comes to wholesalers, so good old wholesalers, again, we love them. Again, a lot of their communication to their customers. So, for example, Best Way that we work with, they work with a whole range of ethnicities. So again, you have to take that into account in terms of how they want to receive information, should it be translated. And a lot of that is paper-based, but we've just launched an app for them to help ordering easier. But that's a very traditionally focused business.
I agree entirely. I see a lot of business plans are not with this, but at times you just see social media strategy, and actually it's wrong. You know what it is?
Yeah.
I think you waste a lot of time
Yeah,
on social
exactly,
media as well,
absolutely.
right? Like, great, you know, you've got some Instagram
It's
posts,
going to be a whole
like,
new
put it out there and sell your
But
product.
I'm always really interested that often people call using social media building community, and actually building community is more than that. We've grown totally organically. We don't spend money on any social media advertising, or we've tried to grow little bits. But because we have got something that our consumer wants, they want to join us, but we also give them things to do. And so the more they do for you as part of what you're trying to achieve, either as a brand or because we've got a slightly more campaign event, then the more people are bought into to being part of the community. Investing is something for people to do, and giving them that. So I think I like to think you go beyond the traditional social media when you really try and engage your customers in how you operate, how they can help you, how they can become your advocates, and then that's where all the exciting stuff is.
Yeah, I think
Laura,
word of
can I
mouth
ask Laura-
is the big thing there as well.
Yeah,
right?
Laura, quick question. You've got 30,000 members.
Yeah.
Can they communicate with each other as a group on social media?
Yeah, and so we have a very active Facebook community. So half our members are on a Facebook community where they talk. We have over average engagement for a online community. And we have socials happening all over the country because those people want to meet. It's incredibly powerful. And the amount of pictures of alcohol-free drinks that they share amongst each other in terms of, you know, who's found what drink where, makes them incredibly powerful. When they heard that the Rawson's Retreat was coming off the shelves at Tesco's because there was a shortage of supply for a month, I've got pictures of people with whole supermarket trolleys full of, you know, of alcohol-free fizz, and it all went a bit mental. We can get 500 emails to Tesco's if somebody thinks that their product's been taken off that they like in a very short amount of time. And again, that's where that relationship with consumers can be really quite interesting, and if you can help, they can actually help you with your product and keeping it on the shelves. We did some work with Big Drop to all of our members took pictures of which supermarkets had and didn't have the Big Drop in the store. So when Big Drop went into the store, they could talk about where they felt that they need more product in store, because all of these people on Club Soda are saying that they want the product here.
You can create demand, basically.
Yeah.
I think one of the big opportunities that's obvious that I've seen that everyone misses as well, and this is something that someone advised me on, and I was like, wow, that's so obvious, is if you're a small business, you can't be going and paying for influencers, but you can find an influencer who's well aligned with your brand, just bring them on board as co-founder, give them an equity stake. You can turn your sales from 0 to a couple of million in 6 months. I've seen 3 businesses do it that I've spoken to. One was like a sustainable nappy brand. They brought on Emma Bunton, Baby Spice, as co-founder. She's just the face of the brand. She owns 50% of the company, but they went from 200k sales to 2.3 million sales in 1 year.
Wow.
It's a very obvious opportunity. I mean, if you look at that tequila brand that George Clooney was involved in, sold to Diageo today at some ridiculous multiple of revenue, right? They weren't really even profitable, I don't think. And that's all because of the power of an individual. You know, don't be afraid to give away a stake in your business, because 100% of nothing's worth a lot less than 50% of, you know, 100 million.
That's exactly the strategy that Quorn has. So basically, we run a chef engagement program for Quorn, because basically Quorn years ago, chefs wouldn't have touched it. But basically now we get the product into the hands of Michelin-starred chefs even, to use it as an ingredient, and then that links into the consumer activity, because we use, you know, chefs, you know, National Chef of the Year competition on cooking with Quorn. That's captured, then that's shared across the consumer social media. So consumers are seeing top chefs cooking with Quorn, and therefore they go, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So again, the power of the influencer. The final thing I'd say is the importance of insight, because that's a lot of firms are looking for, you know, MPD, innovation. If you can give them insight that relates back to your product as a solution, I think that's a really good way to get cut through when you're having conversations with people. So.
Fantastic. Great insights, actually. And we could no doubt carry on talking for quite a while. We have run over a little bit, so we're going to wrap up there. Just got a few thank yous. So thank you, Freddie, for coming along with samples. And there's more chicken samples outside as well. And you'll also see this chili ink. Has anyone had any of this? Early stage business. We were providing some workshop advice this morning too. That's lovely stuff. African sourced chilies. It's just really good. Okay, so don't leave them here. Grab a lot of them. Just like to say thank you to Workspace as well, because this lovely room and outside we borrow from Workspace to use for events like this, and you know, they're home to actually lots of food and drink product development companies across their portfolio. So some of whom have been here today. So thank you very much to them. Thank you to all of you, 4 of you, to Laura, Patrick, Mark, Anita. Really insightful stuff, all on camera, amazing. And you see, as soon as we started, you didn't notice it was there, did you? So thanks very much. We've got for half an hour or so, do network, have a drink, light sweet outside, alright? And
Great alcohol free.
yes, fantastic. And yeah, look, have a safe journey back as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.